So, hey, Tisha, I don't know what episode this is because we're just sort of cutting all of these together. So, anybody that watches this, they're going to be like, I don't know what episode this is. But today, I thought it would be interesting to talk about boundaries and self-care. Everybody sort of has like a different viewpoint on what that means to them, right? Like when I said to you, let's talk about boundaries and self-care, like what popped into your head?
Okay, where is this coming from?
Right. You're like, where's the
Okay,
book? Wait a
and
minute.
there's a lot of different avenues when it comes to self-care and boundaries, right? Is it towards our kids, towards colleagues, towards saying, yes, I'll keep doing more on the job and you really are overwhelmed? There's so many avenues. That's why I was like, where's this coming from?
That
Right.
is important to me. And I'm trying to spend time getting up in the morning and finding time to go for a walk and put my earbuds in and listen to my growth day and then without interruption. But I'm also trying to be present for my family, right? That's very important to me. And being able to follow through with things like that, or to be able to say, I don't agree. So that's what I wanted to talk about. It's not
Okay.
communication, which is what we were talking about last time, but boundaries, self-care. Like, what
Yeah.
do I need to do to take care of myself? And how do I make sure to honor that and to make sure that people in my life know what those boundaries are? Because otherwise, if they don't know, then they won't know if they've crossed them.
Yeah. But, like I think about it, I'm in a cubicle, putting a sign up or something. I remember one of my jobs, somebody bought a red light, yellow light, green light, and it was set up and they put it in red if they were in a meeting. So if somebody came around the corner, they immediately knew, don't say anything. And if
Hmm.
it was in green, meant you were open for conversation. Sometimes that's
Hmm.
all you need is just something to say, I can't talk.
All right. So have you so and I hear that and you're right. And absolutely like being more obvious, but sometimes it's about using our words too, right? Like like I shouldn't just assume that because somebody sees my earbuds, they know that there's something coming out of my earbuds because I'll tell you what, I walk around with my earbuds in my ears a lot of times and they're
I
playing. Nothing. They
okay.
are silent
Right.
as a shield, right? The key is saying and doing the work and
Yeah.
saying, family, this is important to me.
Yeah.
I need this time for myself. Therefore, I am asking you to please
Mhm.
give me that time, right? And
Yep.
allow me to do this so that I am better for you. This is healthy for
Absolutely.
me. I need this. I want this. And I am asking for this. This is not up for discussion.
Hmm.
This is what I need to do. So that's the work. That's the boundary stuff.
Right.
And getting to the place where myself and other people can have that confidence to be able to use that kind of language in all aspects of our lives is really the goal.
Agreed. And that, I'll be honest, that's something that I think we all struggle with. People like myself that are just trying to understand and get to the bottom of something struggle with. I know I speak better when I'm not full of emotions as well. So it's definitely something I think that would be in an ideal world, something that you could say to anybody and everybody going, this is my boundary.
Well, tell me more about you just said that you speak better when you're not coming from a place of emotion. What do you sound like when you're coming from a place of emotion? Because I would like to I because I remember you saying that the voice inside your head sounds like a sticky note, sounds like a check.
So with emotion, yeah, I find that you get stuck on a loop. You don't think outside of the box. You don't try and understand the other person because you're so busy trying to be heard.
And is that a bad thing? So let me ask you, in
Hmm.
those situations, if you're both right and you're trying to fight for who's the most right, is that what the argument's about?
No, it's feeling like you're not being heard, that your answer works as well.
Both right.
When you have no emotion in it, it doesn't make a difference. When you're dealing with it with emotion, I find it's truly being heard that's the problem. Taking the emotions out of it, the root of the problem really could be, hey, you just weren't doing the math and you were forcing me to tell you how to do the math. And therefore, I'm trying to push you to learn to do it yourself. Right.
So who in that situation is the one that's pushing to be heard? You or your daughter?
Everything they were talking about was about their emotion, the victim mentality, the wanting to be heard. And every time you tell them, look, you just got to outline the facts of it for the court, they were hearing, but no, there's this and there's that. And they were so emotional, they weren't listing the facts, they were listing all the reasons it was wrong, and the wrong reasons it was wrong is all emotion. And you could tell by the way they were saying it.
So I heard something interesting the other day about victim mentality and you know um we people that people that are in pain or that see the world as either out to get them or that they're stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're stuck in these places. For them their pain is real, right? Their
It
pain
is. Yep,
is
absolutely.
but what I heard that was really interesting is that people with a growth mindset, people like you and I, are not the norm,
No,
right? Those of us that talk about this stuff, read the books that we read, listen to the podcasts that we listen to, do the work that we do, are not the norm.
no,
They look
100% no.
back at the past and they don't know any differently. They blame,
Mm,
right? They blame. They say, I'm like this because this happened to me. I
yes.
do these things because it's their fault, right?
Yep.
I'm like this because the world is like this. This is why I'm like that. And they're stuck. They are in that loop. They don't know how to get out of it because they don't have either role models or accountability or people that are setting examples to move them past, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that that the victim mentality is really just a stuck place
It
of
is.
inability, or it might be unwillingness. It just may be unwillingness to move past without having the tools. Like they just don't have the tools to go to the next place like we do, which can be really frustrating for people like us that are just like, "Oh, can't you see if you
Yeah.
just got out of bed, if you
Yeah.
just got a job, if you just did this, if you
Exactly.
just did the math problem the way I told you, right?
Exactly.
If you just did it my way, it would be so much better." Um, but that boundary thing, it like comes
Mhm.
full circle,
It
right? Like
does.
we can't cross other people's boundaries any more than we want them to cross ours,
Hmm.
right? And trying to
Absolutely.
tell people what to do, when to do it, or how they should do it just because we think it's good for them when they're not ready
Yeah.
or willing or asking us to solve their problems for them.
Hmm.
Ugh, right? Like that's
Yep.
part of what, like, this whole podcast thing, I was like, I set out going, "Oh, we're gonna do this podcast because we're gonna help people and we're gonna do," and I'm like, people are not asking us for our help.
Nope.
Nobody's asking. Hello,
Nope.
people. I know you're not asking us for your, so why are we here? Right? It's really, it's probably more, it's for me to talk through stuff that I'm learning because basically I'm listening to this stuff every day, and the only way I can learn is to repeat what I've learned.
Agreed.
Really
Agreed.
me just, I'm just parroting stuff and I'm just trying it out on you, Tisha.
Woohoo!
I'm just, but I
Yeah.
need to hear it come out. And you're just such a great person for me to be like, this is something I was thinking about
Yeah.
today. And it's all like what ifs. Like
Hmm.
I just need your brain because your brain thinks differently than my brain.
We can. you know, have people come to us or to somebody else and they're asking their advice and what all, and then they don't do it and they, try and get you to solve it and try and get you to step forward. Like I think about our children, right? Yours are all adults. Mine just became an adult about to graduate. And the early adulthood, it's like, wait, mom always made the phone calls. Mom scheduled the appointments. How do I get mom to still do this instead of them wanting to do it, And oh, I can't. They're going to hate me. They're not going to talk to me. What if they ask a question I don't know? And it's that round robin anxiety kind of, situation. And it's asking them in the long run, whether it's a bad situation, they're a victim of something, or it's something as simple as making an appointment somewhere. Do you want to get out of the situation you're in and learn to move forward, learn to do it on your own, right? If you're not ready for that, then let me just do it, kind of thing, especially with your kids. If not, it's okay, here's my boundary for you. If you're not ready to really move forward and really asking for help, then my boundary is I'll listen and that's about all you get, kind of thing, right? Because we have to know that mindset up front as to whether are we really helping them or are we just literally sitting here and being a friend.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. And I think, the boundaries, so having boundaries with our kids is like, that's a whole other,
It sure is.
you know, but I read a book a long time ago called, I read it a long time ago when I took, so early in when I was in school. Um, and I had decided to major in psychology, and I was taking every single psychology class I could take. Like in my first year, I took a class called Understanding Self and Others. And it was
Okay.
like, I loved this class. And in that class, we read the book um, by by Scott Peck, the Road Less Traveled. Now,
Oh.
I had already read that book, but we read it in class and then we discussed it. And it was like being in therapy, and I loved it. I was like, great. Of course, everybody in the class was just like, oh my God, this is so hard. And of course, the first sentence in this book is life is difficult. But what I loved, or if and it just resonated with me, it taught me about healthy relationships. It taught me about what real love is, romantic love, and love with our children. And what I got from that was the fact that our children do not belong to us.
Yeah.
They don't belong to us. They're just kind of on loan. Like
Yes.
our job is to raise them and keep them alive for 18 years.
Believe me, I know.
Do no harm. Just do no harm
That's
sometimes
it.
is about it, right? And then let them go. Like my job is to raise my children to be healthy, productive, loving members of society so that they could go out into the world
Mm-hmm.
and thrive or not.
Yep.
My mother is still so codependent. She's still up my you know what and
But
living
I
in
love your mom.
and living in my house,
Yep.
right? But I knew that from before I had my children to the time that they were born. I looked at them and I said, "Boy, I really like you, but I don't get to keep you no matter what. You're cute, but I gotta know that I gotta let go of you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you are gonna fail and you are gonna mess up and you are gonna feel pain, right? So I drew a boundary right from the very beginning. And not that I cut my heart off to them, but I
No, of course
also
not.
sort of knew like, look, you got to figure it out. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to teach you the lessons, but I also know that obviously age appropriately, you got your own mind. And my dad always used to say to me from the time I was a little girl, Heather, I assume you will use your usual good judgment. And I used to hate that. Usually it was because I was asking if I could do something I was not allowed to do or I wasn't supposed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of him saying no, he would never say no to me. I hated it. He would
Oh,
say, Heather, I assume you will use your usual good judgment because he taught me what I was supposed to do and what I wasn't supposed to do.
Mhm.
And if I did what I wasn't supposed to do, I knew what the consequences were.
I think I needed that advice 9 years ago when my husband passed and I became a single mom. Going, use your usual good judgment.
I assume you will use your usual good judgment. And I would like, "Ugh, God,
I
darn it."
know I'm not supposed to do this.
I had that in my head with my kids. And, unlike my mom was just like, anything you want. And my dad was like, quiet, Elaine. And the temptation to want to get in there and get my hands in there and
Mhm.
micromanage their lives, you watched me go through
Yep.
some of that with my son and,
Yep.
the battle, when we went through some tough times. And not to say that haven't gotten my hands in there, but for the most part, the boundary for myself, right?
Yep.
Because I am powerless over people, places, and things. And that includes my children,
And that's what we all forget.
right?
Yep.
But I can control myself and I can control my actions and how I
Yep.
feel and how I respond. And so, once again, it comes down to my boundaries,
Exactly.
you know? And what will I allow my children to do? Will I allow them to take advantage of me? Will I allow them to talk to me a certain way? Will I allow them to, you know, um,
And I think the good part about talking about this is there are so many people who know how to set boundaries when it's someone other than family. I know that's something I always can do. I'm like, it's real easy to set boundaries, you know. I can be there for a friend and then I know shut it off. Don't let it affect me and my mood so I can be present for my family. But when it's family, it's a lot harder to say, no, I don't have time for that. Or no, you can't go do that right now. You have other responsibilities or whatever the case may be. It's definitely harder with family. And you would think it would be easier.
what do you think that is? Why is it harder?
Well, for me with my child, it's harder because of the fact that I have a much different situation than a lot of people. And in that I adopted my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's another mom out there that, of course, I
Yeah.
do talk to, but there's another mom that technically she
Yeah.
could run to now that she's 18. Do I think she's going to do that? No. I set some boundaries, but a lot of times it's no, what do you need? Family comes first, you know? And I think that's what we're all taught, right? Growing up, family comes first. Anything they need, if someone's sick and they need to be taken care of, you drop everything, you go take care of family, you know, regardless of what it is. But when it's a friend, it's like, yes, I love you, Heather.
Right, with family, you mean? Yeah, I think family has a way of guilting us.
Absolutely.
I think that there is definitely a like an inner, like a guilt or shame or um something that tells us we're obligated to
Hmm.
do certain things that I have to because you're my family.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's expected of us. It's
Hmm.
expected of me to do certain things. We're expected to do things for our children. We're expected to do things for our parents. I don't
Yeah.
have siblings, so I don't know what that's like being an only child. Um, my dad, my stepdad, by the way, not my birth dad, but man, he had some words of wisdom. He used
Okay.
to say to me, I would say things like, "You're making me feel guilty." And he would
Okay.
say, "I can't make you feel anything.
Hmm. Very.
You feel guilty. That's on you. I can't make you feel anything." So, again, words of wisdom by Homer Dodge. I'll write a book one day.
There you go.
Wonderful things. But but it's true, right? So
Hmm.
my mother could say things, your daughter could say things, my husband could say
Yep.
things, passive aggressive,
Very.
whatever. And then
Hmm.
I get riddled with guilt and shame. And I feel guilty if I don't get home in time for dinner at 6:30
Yep.
because I'm here doing a podcast or I work late, or I'm doing
Hmm.
this or whatever because I walk through the door and they all look at me like they're starving to death. Poor people don't know how to open up a refrigerator.
Yep.
God forbid, right?
Hmm.
I walk through the door and the energy just sucks it out of me, right?
Yep.
And then what? I feel guilty.
This is the
This
boundary.
is
We
it that we're trying to
got
get
there.
to. This is the work. How do we do the work inside so that we don't feel that way? Because it's not them. But we
No.
have to, what I'm learning is I have to get the courage
Yes.
and
Yes.
the bravery to find my voice to say to those people,
Mhm.
no, you can't make me feel anything. However, I feel like this when sigh when I walk through the door, or pout,
Right.
or don't feed yourself before I get home and
Hmm.
wait. And my new boundary is if you haven't eaten by 7 p.m. and I come through the door, I am not cooking for you.
Nope. Yep.
So I
Absolutely.
would love to hear what other people think of all that because, man, it just touches everything.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. And that's why I said at the very beginning, where is it coming from? Is it family? Is it? It is. But like we got to, it's much harder with family. There's a sense of guilt or a sense of being manipulated because of what they want. They're trying to get it from you. And you just go, I'm too tired to argue.
Well, but it could play out at work as well. Because listen,
Yeah,
a year ago, I was in a situation where I had no voice.
true.
So, it happens.
So when you think about it, does the fear of not saying anything to vocalize those boundaries come from another place of fear?
Oh, it goes so deep.
Yeah. And I think the difference is identifying that fear so you can work through that fear of your own, right? A lot of times that fear comes from not feeling wanted, liked, needed, loved. And you,
Well, and I think that for a lot of people too, that it's that abandonment. If I tell you
mhm,
what I think or how I feel,
yep,
you're going to leave,
absolutely.
right? Because you said it yourself, right? Family are the ones that love us unconditionally. So
They
why
do.
would we be afraid to tell them what we think or how we feel?
And that's really the thing you got to ask yourself. And when you're doing the self work, is what's the worst thing that can happen here?
Hmm.
Can I accept that? If so, speak your boundaries,
That's right.
speak your word.
Speak your truth.
Mhm.
Well, and I think we should end it with this because I think we've been talking for a bit.
Quite some
But
time tonight.
and in those situations, knowing that even if it's a confrontational conversation, learning the lesson that in a confrontational conversation that might be difficult, if it's in a healthy relationship, recognizing that it's okay if nobody wins or nobody is right as long as both people get to be heard.
And
And
that's
that's
the
what
key.
you said at the very beginning. And
Yep.
that's what I was trying to get to is the thing about being heard does not necessarily equal being agreed with. I can hear you loud and clear, but I don't have to agree with you, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know that if you are hearing me, it's okay for you to disagree.
Not at all. Not at all. And sometimes just adding those few words. I hear you. I don't agree with you. Let's agree to disagree and
Hmm.
move on from that
Right,
point because then you know you've been heard.
right, right. This is a boundary of mine. Don't have to agree. I
Yep.
just want you to hear me
Exactly.
because I
Exactly.
don't agree.
Right. Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I think this was a good discussion.
I think so.
All right.
All
Cool.
right. So,
I think I think maybe like one of our next topics should be something a little lighter, like food or something.
Oh, I like
We talk-
food. I did. That looked amazing. I was like, where's my plate?
Maybe we should make dinner together and like, what are
There you
you
go.
making? All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Soulful Success Show. I'm Heather Gagnon.
I'm Tisha Ladia.
If this is actually posted and you make it to the end of the video, please like us down below and we will see you.
See you.
Bye.